They have a historic season. The wins, the point differential, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander winning all the MVPs at all the stretches. This series does not lead me to say, despite them having a historic year, oh, they're going to run off 3 in a row, or they're going to be here for the next X amount of years. I won't say flaws, and this is not like, it's hard to say this when you're winning the championship. You just won the whole thing. But everybody likes to turn the page forward and say, oh, yeah, we're going to be here. I think the last few years have told us both there's no guarantees in anybody coming back and showing up just because it's so damn hard to win.
Yep. And they're going to be here for a long time.
I think they're going to be in contention. They're not going to fall off.
I think they are going to be at a level similar to where they are for a very long time. That is what I think. Now, I think that what makes them different than all the other teams that we're talking about is, and let us not forget this, as a member of the Oklahoma City Thunder, this is the 3rd time Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has been to the playoffs. That's it. The first time was the first year. They had 2 years they did not make the playoffs with this team, right? This version of the team that they have. This is only the 2nd year of it. Every shortcoming that we can see and say that they have is one that we can reasonably presume will improve in part just with guys getting older and more mature, right? So I think we start with that part. The next part, of course, being they have, I want to call it 15 draft picks, first-round draft picks over the next 7 years. They had the ability to adjust this roster however it is that they need to adjust this roster. I will also point out about this roster something that is truly fascinating. They've only got one super-duper lottery pick. I mean, like a top 3, top 5 guy. The only one they have is Chet. Everybody else, including Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who they got in a trade, but still, they figured out how to fill this roster out at the margins. They have guys that were big contributors during the season who didn't even play. Isaiah Joe being an example of that. If they had a different general manager, I might be inclined to believe you. But the things that have taken these other teams down, Denver not being able to afford to re-sign Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Bruce Brown, that's not going to be an Oklahoma City problem. The Warriors, who were really just closing off what was possible in a year that felt like somebody got to win this, right?
Right.
That's not going to be the thing. Milwaukee, which it had its issue with coming up short in the playoffs already, and then Chris Middleton's body starts falling apart, and that's the big thing. That's their second best player.
Right.
The Celtics, who we thought would be here for a while, and then second apron happens, and then, of course, Tatum gets hurt, so then they fall off. All the things that I feel like we can point to about those other things, I don't think any of them apply to the team that they have right now. And let's just say, and it looks possible, I started this postseason saying they didn't have a good enough number 2, okay? What if they wind up with 2 guys that are good enough to be number 2? Because with Chet getting better and Jalen Williams, who put up 40 in that game 5.
Yes, he did.
I don't... The only reason to say that they're not going to stay there, or it's unlikely for them to stay there, is because it's unlikely for everybody else. But this team, to me, was built according to a separate paradigm from those teams, and this paradigm seems like it's built to last.
Well, my thing is this, and I was going to lead to asking you this. One, I think I was higher on Jalen Williams than you were, and I was kind of like, if he shows up, and it's funny that we have gotten to the Scottie Pippen portion of the program where Scotty's like, yeah, I see a lot of him and me. Scotty, you ain't never put up no 40 ball in the finals. You ain't never saved a damn day. That's what Jalen Williams, I think, has the confidence, bringing it back to Jalen. That's where he has the confidence to be like, you know what? This game is calling for this, like a maturity for a guy in his 3rd year, who was a point guard when he was in college and then had a growth spurt, for him to recognize the things, to have a point guard mentality, but also turn into the dude Bo that can do big dude things. That to me is impressive. The thing that gets me, going back to whether OKC can keep this together, and I was going to ask you this. Chet and Jalen are in the same draft class. You're going to have to pay both at the same time. In this new paradigm, financial paradigm, can you have super max guy and then 2 rookie big boy maxes? That's the question I have. So with that being said, is this a San Antonio-like runway, or is this a Golden State-like runway?
That is a very interesting question. And I think The thing I don't think that Presti gets enough credit for, because of the bad luck this team ultimately had, is how well they recovered from after making the trade for Harden. Because what gets lost is they traded Harden for like Kevin Martin, Jeremy Lamb. I think it was
Steven
one more
Adams.
dude. Yeah, the pick that was Steven Adams. And I think there may have been one more piece. But the key to it was that Kevin Martin's deal was expiring. And so it gave them a measure of cap flexibility. But in 2014, they were right there in the West Finals. They just ran up against what we didn't fully realize at the time was legitimately one of the greatest NBA teams of all time. In 2016, they were up 3-1 over what may have been at that one of the greatest teams of all time, like in both of those cases. But they had the Westbrook injury in 2013. They had the Durant injury in 2015. I just say all that to say, even with moving James Harden, they still figured out this team in such a way where they were still really, really good and legitimate championship contenders. So let's say something happens and they have to make a decision on call it Jalen Williams, right? Because I think you're more likely to find another one of those than you are to find the 7-foot three-point shooting rim protector with handles. Like, I think this is the beginning with Chet. I think it's easy for us to forget. He only played like 50 games this year and had a broken hip or whatever it was. Right. I think at some point you got to look at the guy in charge and be like, yo, I think he'll find a way. And I think he has earned a measure of faith to make us say, I think he'll find a way.
Oh, no. Look, me and Sam, I think Sam Presti is one of the best executives we've ever been around. Like, considering the fact of this dude came up, he didn't come up in Oklahoma City. He came up in Seattle. When I say coming up in Seattle, he took over the team in Seattle, and there's certain advantages that you have in Seattle that you don't have to worry about when you move to Oklahoma City. And then you figure out, okay, we're moving to Oklahoma City. Nobody wants to come here. How can I build this team? Not knowing that I have these disadvantages working against me. Like, he figured all this stuff out on the fly, and I give him a lot of credit for that. And I don't want to discount and say that Clay Bennett won't go into some level of the tax because they just won. I'm going to let that question answer itself before assuming that they won't, especially with these guys being so young and you're not paying old dudes. But Bo, that's why you got the draft picks too. The draft picks are there in case you got to trade JDub or in case you got to trade Chet. This is the game just rewinds. It just looks different.
Right. And the game for the draft is different, and I still can't believe that people haven't adjusted. And what I mean by that is what throws me off in these deals like the Desmond Bane trade where you give away 4 first-round picks, or the Mikal Bridges deal where you give away 5 first-round picks. And I got that with the Bridges deal if you're operating under the thing of look at this wonderfully affordable contract. We're not going to be able to find somebody who does it for this kind of money. Now, of course, they inherited some Mikal Bridges issues that I hadn't paid attention to, but apparently that meant I just wasn't paying enough attention, which is he don't like nobody to touch him. Like, he like the kid that don't want to be tickled. Except
Bubble boy.
He like 30 years old. Like, get off me, dog. Get off me. Let's look at who the best players are in the NBA right now, okay? Luka Doncic was a super high pick, right? He was the 3rd pick in the draft. Jokic is the 41st pick in the draft. Shai is, what, like 15 or somewhere in that zone?
Yeah, 14, 15.
Giannis was the 15th pick in the draft. Just keep going up and down, man. The guys that are running this league are not top picks. This isn't that league anymore. There's so many more players and you can get them in more places. And so the idea that Presti is getting these picks and he finds Jalen Williams at what was it, late teens or something like that?
Yeah, like
12, I think it was.
12. It was 12.
I think it was 12. But the idea that you could find a player at 12, like Kawhi Leonard was drafted at 15, for example, right? The idea that you could find these people in these places, and I don't know how much of it is luck. I don't know how much of it is dead on skill. But if they wind up with a bunch of picks in the middle, it's cool. Chances are they'll figure out a way to get this done, especially since they have one of the 2-3 best players in the NBA. Like, that's the other part too, is I got to start coming around on the idea that what Shai Gilgeous-Alexander does is I get to the right elbow, and then once I'm there, you can't stop me from making a shot. And that's really all you got to be able to do.
Get to the spot.
Like the LeBron conversation. LeBron don't have a bag. Hey, man, I don't need to know kung fu if I got a bazooka. That boy a bazooka. You got to be out here doing all this fancy to try to get by people. He ain't got to do none of that. It ain't never come up in conversation. This cat, Shai, is just like, look, I'm going to get over there to the elbow, and I guess we'll see what happens.
That's the Mike-like quality. There is no comparison, him and Mike. I don't care what the numbers say, but that is the Mike-like quality, because Mike would say, I'm getting to a spot on the elbow, and I'm hitting the shot. And there's nothing you can do about it. The relationship is between me and the rim, not me and you. That's where Shai is. And this is what I will say about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, watching him last night. That man was exhausted. That man did everything that was required of him to win a 7th game, and efficiency be damned. Like, sometimes in these games, these games are never pretty, right? You're playing 100+ games. You're exhausted mentally, physically, all this stuff. He was 8 of 27. That's like Kobe Bryant in 2010, but it didn't feel like he didn't turn the ball up. He had 12 assists. He had to grind out a game, and we don't think of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander as the grind out guy. We think of him as being the guy that shoots 50% and, like you said, gets there. I earned a measure of extra respect for him because it did not come easy, even though they're favored, and he had to put the team on his back to some degree and say, you know what? Nobody else can take these shots but me, because Chet ain't ready yet, and Dub can only do so much. I give him respect for the 29 shots. I don't trip on the 8.
No, well, Vinny, that's the thing that goes back to what I was kind of talking about before, the only been to the playoffs 2 times. We don't think of him as that guy because he hadn't had the opportunity to even demonstrate these capabilities and characteristics. It just hadn't come up. And so in that game last night, if he had more pelts on the wall, we would describe it exactly like you did, where he just showed up and was like, if we gonna win it, we gonna win it because of me. And I have to go out here and get the damn thing done. But this team, in the way that we have all historically watched basketball, it is a climb. It is the Dynasty saga. And we watch those guys get to a place and bump their head against the ceiling. Like, for people who don't remember, when the Bulls got to the finals for the first time in 91, they were playing against a Lakers team that was Magic, Johnson, and guys.
Yep.
And people were still picking the Lakers because you normally got to lose before you get it. Like, this is just the nature of it. This is how it works.
Yeah.
They skipped through all of this. Like, they seem to me to be way ahead of schedule, given what it is that they pulled off. And now, that's the thing, Vinny. We're talking about a guy that on advanced metrics is putting up like top 20 all-time type of seasons. And now, not only did they win a championship, he did champion things. He had 15 points in the last 5 minutes of Game 4, the game that absolutely saved their season. Tyrese Halliburton is walking around just fine right now if they win that game, because it doesn't get to no Game 7. They win that series in 6 at home if it comes to it. But Shai did what had to be done in that game. So what if he really is that guy, in the way that we had to get comfortable with the idea that Jokic was that guy, just because it looked a little bit different? Ethan Strauss on his newsletter makes a very good point. The guys that are the superstar caliber dudes for real get it done with 2-pointers. It's not guys that shoot all these threes. And it led me to an interesting hypothesis, which is, if you just kind of hanging around the league, then you need threes. Right? If you go be a guy that can't go out there and get buckets, your shots need to be worth 3, not 2. But if you got it, if you that dude and you can go get 2 points at the rate at which Shai can go get 2 points, at the rate at which Jokic can get 2 points, at the rate at which Giannis can get 2 points, even Luka Doncic in this conversation, right? Then you could go shoot mid. You absolutely, that don't shoot mid ranges, that ain't for the kind of dude we talking about right now. You know what I'm saying? And he can go get it done.
That's a great, you know what it is? Because shooting them threes is hard. When you get to a game 100, you ain't got the legs to be out there shooting 25, 26, 27 footers, unless your last name is Curry and you are at a different point in your career. They only made one of those dudes, right? Shai, and here's the thing. There's nothing wrong with saying, I want to see you do it. And when you do it, cool. I don't have to ask. If you can, I don't have to doubt you. With the Jokic thing, it was like, hey, man, I just want to see you do it. Jokic did it, and now you're the guy. Shai, I just want to see you do it. You've done it, now you're the guy. You're forever stamped. We don't ask the question about Giannis anymore. We don't ask the question about Steph anymore. We got the question about Luka Doncic. We don't have that questions anymore. Once you do it, you do it.
We don't ask the question about Giannis anymore, and good for him, because since that championship, he has given us lots of reason to ask lots of questions. But once you are a champion, unless your name is LeBron James, we don't ask any more questions.